Blessings, family. Sister Ajali. This is going to be a long one, but it is going to be scathing. And I have deciphered from the subtle shadow banning of my channel and how they removed a comment where I was just talking about the radiations central part in everything that we're seeing, that my response to a brother who was talking about something that you would figure YouTube would have censored his comment, would have deleted his comment. But they left that on up there with the, they know that people realize the government is full of crap. It's been taken over. It's basically a tyranny, but there's so many of us still alive. They don't want to just come right out and announce it because there are billions of people who would be against tyranny. Now, they left his comment up there, even though it was broadcasting a supposed conspiracy theory about the stickerini thing, that it's the cause of all these sudden deaths and all the rest of it, and that's a bunch of BS. I know it. But they want us, because we don't trust them, to go along with something that's going to keep our eyes off of the real vector of their genocide. That's why they removed my reply, and they left the brother's comment there for 18 hours. It was up there. By the time I got to reply, mine was there for 1 second, and it was removed instantly. I didn't mention a daggone thing about the sticky thing in my reply. And so when I saw that, I said, oh, okay. I need to be a grown-up. I need to not concern myself with what you're going to do with this information, because that's going to be on you. I need to put it out here because I have the data, I have the facts, I have the just overwhelming compulsion to do the research in depth so that I could just blast this whole thing out of the water. I could, just this information, I don't want to say me because I'm a sister, and I accept that. I love being a woman. But as a woman, I know that my voice it really shouldn't carry authority like that so that people would hear what I'm saying and automatically just give me deference. No. I think you're supposed to give me respect. But I know eventually the message I'm carrying is meant to be brought home by a brother. Right? And so, yeah, California just had Hurricane Hillary. California never has hurricanes at all. And so folks are noticing the weather is just drastically strange. We went from epic droughts in California where they were restricting the water that the residents could even use to water their lawns with. Their lawns were going brown from lack of water. And it's my conclusion, based on their history, their love of materialism, and human behavior making sense. They want us to think that everybody's lost their minds, but human behavior, even when someone's crazy, has a logic attached to it. When it came to the drought, that they were literally holding back the weather systems, the moist air, the rain from the West Coast, so that those rich people who had a clue, who could look at those fires and say, this is the time for me to get out, would watch a couple of lion documentaries about, that it's all the electrical towers, and it wasn't. They were setting those fires deliberately to release the amount of radiation, but they're signaling the slightly more aware, rich white people amongst them, leave, get out. This is an evacuation like in Chernobyl, which 900 square miles around the sucker was evacuated, and they were trying not to evacuate a lot of people so that they didn't alert the planet that there's something desperately wrong with nuclear. And the fires that were raging epically, making the entire coastline orange from Washington to California. And no such type of activity is to be seen uniformly across the world. You ain't never seen anything like thereof. And there's fires raging in Europe, even though they'll try every now and then. I see them. They want to put them orange sky photos up in the media. They'll put them first. But that's not the sum total of the fires at all. And those are doctored so that they catch it at a moment. But that's not spreading out across the region. And there's plenty of photos of the fires burning over there. And the sky, it didn't turn orange at all. So for anything to create such catastrophic division between what used to happen in our environment and what's happening now, that is truly incineratingly transitional, transformative phenomena, so that you can make a clean analysis from when Fukushima it was blasted off and between what's happening now. So what happened with the hurricane, what makes it unprecedented is that such has never happened before. I mean, when was the last hurricane to hit California? Never. What is that change? So that you've got weather that is far more volatile. Let's go over it because it must be explained. Fukushima, it's that simple. You have a massive release of radioactive isotopes numbering almost up to 3,000. Each one with its own separate dynamic features. If you just look at all the items surrounding you right now, they're all composed of atoms. And they have different expressions so that you have different items all around you. Well, man-made radiation get their release into our environment from an ore, which is an amalgamation of many different levels of radiation, is uranium ore. And there's enough of a configuration of very, very heavy types of radiation, uranium-235 specifically, that it winds up dampening down the fissioning process of the uranium ore. That's why we don't get the levels of volatility released into our environment as what's happened with the fissioning process, which was developed by Enrico Fermi, so that you would have a perpetual chain reaction of the fissioning process, and it could literally not be stopped. They had to create a certain ratio of elements by removing uranium 237, I believe. As I said, these numbers, it's like it'll drive you crazy. But they had to, and they call that the depleted uranium. It's not depleted. It's highly volatile. It stays radioactive for up to 450 billion years, and then it'll just change into another form of radiation. They have to balance all of that together in order to get that criticality moment where the fissioning process then just goes on all by itself, and it can't be stopped. It can't be stopped. And that's the issue is that these radioactive isotopes, they do not exist anywhere in the universe except for in supernovas, because they are that goddamn volatile. It is literally Pandora's box, and they've released hell itself, which attacks everything. So that's the problem with radiation, is it's so impactful in every single realm of existence that we have a hard time taking in the data so that we know all this stuff is connected. It's connected to what is on our plates. And so in this share, I'm going to do my best to explain it so that you can, sit down with your family members and share this with them. I'm going to try to maintain my composure because I tend to get really emotionally, I'm just invested in your safety. That's it, period. And I mean black us, right? I don't hate anybody out there at all. I would never harm a single soul unless they were coming at me with using their own deadly force. In that case, then, well, I won't discuss it. But I know all our conflicts can be resolved peacefully by sharing this. This is the hope. Getting the information out that's inside Pandora's box that the devil hopes we'll ignore. And so that it stays in the box. But when you are destroying the only planet we have, and then increasing that by a targeted genocide, you have lost authority for anybody to trust anything that you do. If it's a court of law and a witness is found to have lied or to have a personality or a vocation that is, equated with unsavory, intentions, your testimony is just crap, right? And so this is one of the things that happened during the Hurricane Hillary, was just damage, not excessive damage compared to other regions that deal with hurricanes on a regular basis. But there's never been a hurricane in California, while every place else, the weather just gets worse and worse. So, of course, after a while, the whole planet's going to be covered by, it's just going to be Mars. I've said it a million times, but they have released forces that turn planets into Mars and worse. That's because things are just that damn volatile. And on top of that, there was a 5.1 earthquake that shook certain parts during the storm. And I imagine, because I'm not a conspiracy theory channel, not at all. I'm going to give you the facts. The 5.1 earthquake, it was concerning to people because here's this unprecedented storm. And then you got an earthquake at the same time. With Fukushima, there were more than 3 explosions, or at least damage, to the nuclear reactor buildings. There were multiple. I think there was a total of 6 reactor buildings at the site, and they all suffered damage. And there were other reactors that, because of the tsunami, suffered damage also. But for 3 of those reactors, their core, that was the fuel inside their reactors, they melted because the ability to keep that fissioning process in check was removed due to a computer virus, a Stuxnet virus that turned off all their computers. Now, there's another narrative that's out there about, there was flooding and all the rest of that. I'm not going to get into that aspect of it. But that wasn't the reason. The reason was they lost the ability to stop the reaction of the core from going into criticality level where it just reached, it was clocked, leaving the building at higher temperatures than the surface of the sun. It's concrete buildings. And so for anything to melt concrete, because those cores went into the earth itself. In order for something like that to happen, you have to have temperatures hotter than the surface of the sun, right? And so those cores destabilize the uniformity, the calmness of the tectonic plates themselves. They're barreling into our planet. I am praying and hoping at this point in time that, well, it's a big planet, that the volatility of the center of the Earth is enough that those cores have been dispersed out. However, they're still causing effects. That's why all the volcanoes around the planet have been far more volatile. But as they've passed the different levels of the planet, they're not causing as chaotic an earthquake situation as they once were. I'm not saying that can't, return at some point in time. Maybe the quakes that have happened have positioned the tectonic plates so that they're more stable in a way. But the volcanoes with the magma, there's magma flowing into places that it's never been beneath our surface. And you could see it in Iceland, where I can't say the name of that volcano there, but it's been spewing lava like it has never done before. All right? And so that's why when I look at the 5.1 quake, it's not really that big a deal. It wasn't that big a deal. And I'm hoping that's more evidence that those cores are no longer in the area that would destabilize the surface tectonic plates, okay? But the reason why that doesn't make a daggone bit of difference when it comes to the hidden murder of California is because of things like this. Is just one radioactive isotope. It's actually iodine-129. And this website, E&E News, they took that sucker down shortly after I showed up and I started making videos, and I was on Facebook before, here on YouTube, letting people know what was going on. They took this channel down altogether. Is that connected? I really don't know. I can hazard a guess that it is, because the genocide is intended for black you and me, using the sea moss, using rice grown in Fukushima that is being donated. Japan, which is the cheapest nation one of the cheapest nations on the planet when it comes to donating anything. Japan is just giving its rice away to pretty much only black nations. And if they're in the South Pacific, I understand maybe there's one of them, they're all deep brown. All right? But I would say they gave it away to the South Pacific because I just highlighted what they were doing, and they had to change their pattern because they need to keep the blind faith of the world. Right? And I don't mean just Japan, but the white people too. They need to keep the blind faith of everybody that they're really, no, it's all conspiracy theory. This ain't. U.S. hit with sudden spikes of rare radioactive material from Fukushima has 15.7 million year half-life. This half-life thing is a full lie. What they mean by half-life is that's how much time it takes for a radioactive substance to lose its signature atomic properties because it's decayed into another substance, which can still be radioactive, but it's no longer iodine-129. It's something else. That's what only happens to half of the volume. The other half is still radioactive iodine. And if you tear a dollar bill in half, that doesn't mean that the other half, you don't recognize it all of a sudden. It takes a lot of tearing in half and half and half, half of that, half of that, half of that, until whatever substance you're looking at is no longer that radioactive substance. This one has a half-life of 15.7 million years. That means technically times it by 10. You could even times it by 100 But I just stay with 10 because I'm trying to be non-conspiracy theorist of me, right? It will still be all the way at 157 million years, the last chance that there'll be radioactive iodine there. And one of the things they say, that's a patent falsification. These dudes have developed a system of lying about radiation. Is they say, oh no, it's the low energy. Iodine 129 is just a beta and gamma emitter. And beta is, has just a short trajectory like a friggin', Gatling gun bullet. But it doesn't go very far. But if it's in your body, it doesn't need to go far. If it's operating on a cellular level, then beta is going to be disastrous. I'm going to show you more proof of that. But let me finish this headline. Orders of magnitude rise in levels on, the West Coast. Much higher amounts than were detected near Fukushima plant just after 3/11. I'm not going to show the projection map from the National Oceanic Atmospheric Agency of all the radiation that mostly hit the United States of America, but primarily is slammed into the West Coast and was blocked to some degree by the Rocky Mountains. Not completely, right? But a good portion. Most of that sucker was on the West Coast. Now, I noticed that they changed when I just go and look it up. They have now these different videos trying to say, oh no, it's just a little bit. And I understand right now that TEPCO has released the tritium water they had in storage tanks into the Pacific Ocean. Oh, I'm going to explain all of that. This video could be an hour, but it needs to be done. All right? But when I went and I looked at this video right here, this thing is so full of crap and such a lie where the immediate thing they say,
it starts at the Takasaki radionuclide station, around 200 kilometers away from the troubled plant. Within 4 days, the dispersion of minuscule amounts of radioactive isotopes were detected in eastern Russia and then travelled to the west coast of the United States. Mika Nikkanen, CTPTO head, Scientific Methods.
We have to stress always that these detection levels which we saw are not harmful for human beings.
And so this right here, this is a video that I did all the way back in 2017. And the title of the video is Move Off the West Coast. And I've learned so much more since then, where I know what to look for and how to look for it. So in that clip where I played the audio and the visual was from the TEPCO film of Fukushima exploding, and I put in a part where you could see the level of damage that was there. Later on, they went in with lying reporters to say, oh, we've rebuilt the whole thing. No, they just went to another nuclear power plant and filmed inside there and said, oh, we're at Fukushima. But that's not where they were. I think they were at a place called Daini. And this is what these people do. They lie like nobody's business, and they expect nobody to look into it, and all of us to fall victim to our human tendencies. Like with my channel, you may fall victim to expecting the big black, supposedly pro-black channels to talk about whatever is relevant to us, but they don't, because they know better. Whereas me, this is my calling. I am not going to stop Just because it looks like the devil doesn't want me to be successful. I want a planet. I'm not that damn dumb to be an agent, even if I'm a mindless one. If popularity means harming you, I don't want it. I don't want it. I hope you don't mind that. And you'll listen to the facts of why. Because I am not a hysterical, given to believing all kinds of things that have not been proven person. I need to see the data, and then I will make the changes in my conclusions based on the data. All right? And so here, when they say in that clip, oh, but it's just low levels, it's no big deal, like iodine-129, $15.7 million half-life, massive quantities that were emitted, hit the West Coast. Oh, but it's of no factor whatsoever. I want to let you know these dudes know about the deadliness of low-level radiation. This right here, this is a book, Health Effects of Low-Level Radiation, Joint Hearing, Volume 96, Issue 41. Over here, they're talking about this one right here, 62557. 1957. Radioactivity in 2,600 Utah areas resulting from the Nevada test site activities. This is just the test bombs, which contain, compared to Fukushima, minuscule amounts of radiation. They were just one-time bombs. But from Fukushima, ain't no sarcophagus over them suckers. What you see on top of those reactors, that's just sheetrock. Sheetrock. It's not lead or anything of the sort to keep the radiation in, and they can't because Fukushima would explode. It's still emitting radiation. Right? And so from 1957, these suckers knew, and you go up this, and there's a lot of pages in this daggone book showcasing that these dudes have known leukemia mortality in southwestern Utah because of them bomb tests. Right? But let's keep it going. Radiation exposure and liver flukes. Little known veterans issues get attention in Congress. These dudes don't give a damn about their own veterans. Federal government maintains that the Eniwetok veterans who wore protective clothing, trust and believe, ain't no paper suit going to protect you from radiation. And radiation monitoring devices and encountered, there we go, low levels of radiological contamination because they were not allowed unrestricted access to heavily contaminated areas. So they're just saying, no, you didn't get the big amount of radiation, just a low level. It's not such a big deal. And these guys, they're doing they're going to give the Department of Energy low-dose radiation research, like they don't already have the research. Right here, U.S. Radiation Panel recognizes no safe radiation dose. None. There's none. This is from 2005, right? Have you heard anything about it? No, neither have I. Risk of cancer death after exposure to low-dose ionizing radiation underestimated. It wasn't underestimated. They just ignored it. I've read Ernest Sternglass's Nuclear Fallout book, and he said, you got to read the books. I'll put the book list at the end of this. But the way that they have, you know what? Let me read a quote from Rosalie Bertell's book. This is Rosalie Bertell. I thank her for her work. Chick is exacting and very profound in her presentation in her book, No Immediate Danger Prognosis for a Radioactive Earth, of the science and the mechanisms involved in hiding all of this from us. So I'm going to read this whole thing, including parts that it just got too much to type it all down. In 1964, Hermann Mueller published a paper, Radiation and Heredity, spelling out clearly the implications of his research for genetic effects, damage to the offspring, of ionizing radiation on the human species. The paper, though accepted in medical biological circles, appears not to have affected policymakers in the political or military circles who normally undertake their own critiques of published research. So that means they're not getting their data from the actual scientists. They're getting it from their propagandists, okay? Mueller predicted the gradual reduction of the survival ability of the human species as several generations were damaged through exposure to ionizing radiation. This problem of genetic damage continues to be mentioned in official radiation health documents under the heading mild mutations, but these mutations are not counted as health effects when standards are set or predictions of health effects of exposure to radiation are made. They don't even count this stuff, okay? There is a difficulty in distinguishing mutations caused artificially by radiation from nuclear activities from those which occur naturally from Earth or cosmic radiation. She goes on to explain that they could do this distinction and discover the reasons and the differences, but they refuse to do it. A mild mutation may express itself in humans as an allergy, asthma, juvenile diabetes, hypertension, arthritis, high blood cholesterol, slight muscular or bone effects, or other genetic mistakes. These defects in genetic makeup leave the individual slightly less able to cope with ordinary stresses and hazards in the environment. Increasing the number of such genetic mistakes in a family line, each passed on to the next generation, while at the same time increasing the stresses and hazards in the environment, leads to termination of the family line through eventual infertility and or death prior to reproduction age. On a large scale, such a process leads to selective genocide of families or species suicide. It soon became obvious that the usual method of determining a tolerance level for human exposure to toxic substances was inappropriate for ionizing radiation. The health effects were similar to normally occurring health problems and were quite varied, ranging from mild to severe in a number of different human organ systems, and their appearance could be delayed for years or even generations. Now here comes the part where I'm going to just keep reading, but I didn't feel like typing all this out. Permissible levels of exposure. The U.S. National Council on Radiation Protection and Measurement gave expression to the theoretical resolution of this human dilemma by articulating the implicit reasoning behind subsequent radiation protected standards development. This is all to explain how they keep increasing the allowable level, even though our bodies haven't evolved to be able to handle an increasing level. That's like saying you're going to get immune to being mowed down by gunfire. No, you're not. 1. A value judgment which reflects, as it were, a measure of psychological acceptability to an individual of bearing slightly more than a normal share of radiation-induced defective genes. That's why you see all the articles about mutated dogs and cats and people. Oh, slightly different. They're going by a measure that if you start to think this is normal, and then that's just the way the society operates. So that is their definition of what's allowed, what we all think is normal. 2, a value judgment representing society's acceptance of incremental damage to the population gene pool when weighted by the total of occupationally exposed persons, or rather those of reproductive capacities as involved in genetically significant dose calculation. That's just a fancy way of saying what I already said. 3, a value judgment derived from past experience of the somatic effects of occupational exposure, supplemented by such biomedical and biological experimentation and theory as has relevance. And she goes on, this is from Basic Radiation Protection Criteria, the U.S. National Council on Radiation Protection Report number 39, pages 58 to 60, not from my feverish, hysterical housewife imagination, okay? So she goes on to say, this is now an internationally accepted approach to setting standards for toxic substances when no safe level of substance exists. In short, this elaborate philosophy recognizes the fact that there is no safe level of exposure to ionizing radiation, and the search for quantifying such a safe level is in vain. So that's why they get to say cockamamie crap like this. Risk of cancer death after exposure to low-dose ionizing radiation underestimated. They're actually being truthful. But they deliberately underestimated it because they could not run these nuclear power plants if our expectation is that our government is supposed to protect us from true hazards, from bullets just pummeling our bodies, but on a subatomic level. And they know with Fukushima, there's been such an escalation in the harm being done that my dear sister, friend, who now lives in California, sent me this photo of a display in a supermarket. She says it's in every single supermarket. If there's anything seaweed, they put this up here. California Proposition 65 warning: products containing seaweed contain chemicals. See, they use that word chemicals, but they mean radiation, right? Known to the state of California to cause cancer, birth defects, or other reproductive harm. Because you might put the puzzle pieces together and you might see what we're seeing now, sudden deaths. Because radiation, as Rosalie Bertel said, it doesn't just cause cancer. And all the things I've described, read the book, The Crime of Chernobyl. These sudden deaths were happening over there too. Right? This stuff, it don't go away. So TEPCO, last I saw, I don't know if right now, but at least in 24 hours, they're going to be releasing all that tritium water. But there's a lie about how hazardous tritium water is in the first place. And then there's a greater lie that all that's in there is tritium water. This article, I've highlighted before, but these things need to be repeated. TEPCO admits treated water not safe to dump. This is from 2018. So things have changed suddenly? I didn't see any words saying, oh, we finally really cleaned up all the water. So the Associated Press reported from a TEPCO press conference held late last week that treated water TEPCO has been trying to dump in the Pacific Ocean is not safe to dump. Much of the radioactive water stored at the plant isn't clean enough and needs further treatment if it is to be released into the ocean. There's no safe dose level. Okay? TEPCO and the Japanese government had been characterizing this water for years as only containing tritium. TEPCO lies, obviously. We have previously raised concerns about the limited and opaque reporting of the contamination in this water. Many reports claim low or zero levels of certain isotopes, while failing to report testing for a long list of other potential contaminants. TEPCO said Friday that studies found the water still contains other elements, including radioactive iodine, cesium, and strontium. It said more than 80% of the 900,000 tons of water stored in large, densely packed tanks contains radioactivity exceeding limits for release into the environment. This is 2018, 7 years. 7 years after the explosion of Fukushima. How is it within 5 years that they've managed to fix this? And they're not going to say anything about it whatsoever. It hasn't been fixed. Even the tritium is deadly. I showed that report too, where they just mysteriously stopped studying tritium. Okay? That's because they know, ooh, this will kill everybody. And it's the reason for the weather change. It's the reason for a hurricane, as has never been seen in California. And again, for those who don't take me seriously, let me re-explain. These are 2 tanks of polluted water. On the left, they use man-made methods of filtration to get the pollution out. On the right, all they had in that water was mussels, a seafood. And they cleared that sucker out. Where you think all that went if it lasts for 12.7, 15.7 million years? And that's just one isotope. It's in the mussels. It doesn't say, oh, mussels will eradicate the radioactivity. And so you're eating seafood, you're eating sea moss, you're eating anything grown in Fukushima. Right? Temporary radioactive soil storage sites hinder Fukushima farmers. This stuff doesn't just stay in one place. It emits particles and it tears stuff apart. So those bags have been there for what? 12 years? That stuff, and that's a rice paddy field right next to it. The rate of sales of Japanese rice has plummeted worldwide, and they're giving it away to black nations. And the FDA is making sure all Fukushima produce, including that would be the seafood too, is on our plates. On our plates. And I had said on another post that they just closely observe what I'm doing because I won't stop. I won't stop trying to save our people. And this used to, if I clicked back and did the, reboot thing, it would open up so that you could see this, which is still there. Look at how many daggone blue dots. Each and every single one of those dots showed the radiation that is all over the daggone planet. There is not a spot you could get your sea moss from that is not going to be absorbing radiation just like those mussels. And that's with no safe dosage. So if nobody else is reporting on this, it's because they don't either get it or they think that if they manage to get a McMansion, it's going to protect them somehow. And no, the hell it's not. Does that mean it's all, like we should be like Chicken Little just running around screaming? No, of course not. That's why they hide it so well. That's why I put the cures in this book. It is absolutely vital for my research to continue. I'm not talking something that is self-serving. I'm talking something that is black us, protective. There's nobody else doing this out here, not a single person. So go to 25,000yearcycle.org and get the cures that are in this book, because over 12 years of research, I've ran into cure after cure after cure. I said, wait a minute, that's it. That's why they hide it. Because they want you stuck out there with no place to go, no way to get there, and not understanding what's happening to you. and your family. It is time for us to man, woman, and child up. We are, I hear lots of people out there saying, we're not like the animals. No, we're not. We're not supposed to use the animals as a guidance on anything other than understanding the mind of Allah and his methods, but not as our idols. We have the mind of Allah right in us, and thereby we are the rescue we seek. If we simply think beyond the limits of the pale folks, okay? Because they want us thinking that they know everything. That is all. It's a wrap. Even I'm so happy the anti-nukers who keep putting out that warning are there. But they're freaking, I don't even listen to most of them because every time you hear them, it's like, oh, it's hopeless, give up. No. White man ain't make this planet and he ain't gonna destroy it. When I come before you, it's not to fear-monger you, it's to get you to get up off your behind. The facts, the data is there. Matter of fact, let me put the book list. It's right on my community page. And some of these books are absolutely astounding. Other ones, once you read enough, then you can decipher when somebody is blowing smoke up your behind, okay? So, yeah, I put the guidance right on out for all of us to be able to avail one another so we can survive whatever these devils have planned. Trust them hiding it is proof positive that they've lost. And even white people don't want to die like this because they are dropping like flies, driving their little putt single engine plane, their Cessnas, just dropping out the sky. And unfortunately, I saw recently how a sister and a brother, they weren't related, but they went down in a helicopter themselves because they were living their dreams, living that idea that if something's wrong, white man gonna tell us. No, he's not gonna tell you about the Wigner effect. No, he's not. Okay? So, yeah, here you go. Just comment. And in the comments, because our beloved brother Yapa left a comment. I love your comments. When you leave, your response, your whatever, even if you're like, this is actually, I'm so scared, I'll talk you off the cliff, okay? And I don't mean jumping off the cliff, but just walking back into safety, right? So he left his comment, thank you, and I had to add some other books. I even got another one, and that's because of your donations, your support. I am going to keep doing what I do. I'm writing a Black love apocalyptic novel because I was listening to bunches of them. They were all getting it wrong. And I'm writing it so that my goal is just to put it in an audio book because this just is so much fun. All right? And it loves us. It sees who we are as a complete people, not a Tyler Perry just cartoon character depiction of who Black you and me are, but who we really are. Okay? So I'm not going to stop, but you keep me going fortified. That makes us all more powerful because my goal is to test our food for that radiation. That's a game changer, okay? All right. Love you, family. Straight Black family pride, and we are on an unstoppable road to victory. Peace and blessings.